If you get anything out of hanging out with us, it's do all your stuff on Riverside. They rock.
No doubt. This is nice.
They're incredible. Elevation Nation, as Parker always says, we have a special treat for you all tonight, today, this morning, all across the world, whether you're coming in from Australia or my hometown, just like these two fellas that are joining us today, Chicago, Illinois. We are honored and privileged to have on two of the co-founders of Live Better Co., two guys that I'm going to jump the gun and say this, I already look up to as mentors coming from Chicago, being in the corporate world and starting their own thing. We have on Jason Loebig and Bret Gornik from Live Better Co. on Elevation Nation. Fellas from across the world right now, welcome to Elevation Nation. Thanks for joining us.
Appreciate you.
We're pumped. Sam, first of all, where's the Baltimore shout out? Like, I'm just sitting here, you're talking Chicago.
I'm sorry, you Ravens fan. You're just
it's messed up. Guys, I am pumped. Like, super, super excited for this. Like, Brett, it must have been a couple months now since we first met, and I've been amped up for this conversation. I mean, like, what you guys are doing is super inspiring, and, like, even, like, we do a little bit of research beforehand. You guys have been doing this for a while. Like, living your dream out for a while. And like Sam said, I already like look up to you guys, even though Jason, like we've really never met each other, but let's get into it. It is Elevation Nation. So it wouldn't be Elevation Nation if we didn't have you guys give us an elevator pitch. Elevation Nation needs to know who you are. Jason, you want to start?
Sure. Just on me personally, or you want me to give the,
whatever comes to
background?
Mind. Could be anything.
Cool. Well, I'll just do it on Live Better. So Brett and I started Live Better about 7 years ago. And what has started as a protein bar and a little bit of training on the side has blossomed into a big international retreat community. We've done 12 retreats to date and have built a pretty big base of private training and coaching clients in and around Chicago. Currently living in Australia right now, and pretty cool that been able to build a business that has been able to travel from the US with me over here, and that we can do things like this via the internet and just connect with amazing people. And I think that journey has really personally changed my life, from starting at a Big Four accounting firm, starting in tax, to now doing this full time for 7 years with one of my best friends who's on this call also, and I'll let him give some background too. But I think just full circle, it's really been an amazing journey, kind of designing and building the life that we envisioned while we help people be healthy along the way. So that's my quick personal and business wrap up.
That was well said, Brett. What about you? I guess you got to go personal now. Got a little basketball hoop behind you.
Yeah, I mean, I echo all that. Yeah, I think I'll add to that. Jason and I met in college under definitely different circumstances than what we live now. I was Jason's bartender for a few years at school. I went to college with his wife, and he came to visit. And we met and just kicked it off right away. And personal anecdote from that, I was probably drank more than all three of you guys combined in college, and probably more than all of Australia did too. But took my life in a complete 180. I haven't drank in the last 6 or 7 years, and I think put health on the forefront. And in doing that, that is the fuel that got Jason and I to really turn a concept into something that's our reality. And I think putting health first is such an important piece that people really don't think about. They think about working out. They think about maybe doing something, for their health every once in a while, but health is the fuel. And so that was the ethos of what Live Better was. And yeah, it started as a protein bar, morphed to training and coaching and retreats, and it could change to something else. But the basis of it is using health to fuel you to do whatever you want to do better.
I'm so amped up about, one, that you guys are following your dreams. I think you both kind of said it in different ways, that you didn't necessarily, maybe you envisioned this, but it wasn't your reality for a long time. And so, again, as Parker and I are a few steps and a few years behind you in terms of where we want to go, I'm curious, as Parker and I are still in corporate jobs, what were those conversations that you both were having when you were in the corporate world, trying to figure out what you wanted to do next? I mean, Jason, I kind of look at you as being in Big Four consulting, and Parker and I are both in Big Four consulting, and I'm having a good time right now. I'm looking at you thinking, damn, that guy could be my senior manager on a consulting project, but look where he took his life. Like, what were those conversations you both were having with each other when you decided to pivot?
Oh man. So Brett and I, after college, we were living in different cities. Brett moved to Milwaukee, and we were really close at school, but I met Brett through other mutual friends too. So our relationship was like, I showed up at U of I when I was visiting my then girlfriend, now wife, and would just like come to Brett to party. And we became really great friends doing that. I had a ton of mutual friends just from going to high schools in the same conference and living in towns next to each other. And so when we ran into each other 2 summers after we graduated, and I've been at PwC for those 2 years, and Brett was working up at Kohl's in Milwaukee and moving back to Chicago, and we ran into each other at this mutual friend's like birthday party or something, and had a great conversation. And Brett was telling me about this bar and just about some of the training he had been doing, and it was a great catch up. And he was commenting on how tired I looked. And it was a Friday night. I had to go work in the office all day Saturday. My busy season at PwC was during the summer. So I was on these weird like compliance deadlines that were May, June, July, August, September. And so my summers were always like the busiest time. And one of those nights I was out with Brett, and we had this great conversation, and honestly have talked every single day since. And in the very early days, it was over like Google Chat while I was at work. I was closing my Lotus Notes and opening my Google Chat to have these like business conversations with Brett. And at the beginning, and I think every like blossoming business owner, entrepreneur, I am not even, and I also want to caveat, like, I'm not a huge fan of the term entrepreneur as it's not a job title. You're not an entrepreneur is not your job title unless you're like Elon Musk or somebody who's started tons of businesses. But even then, like, you do something specific. And the specific thing that Brett and I were really focused on doing was getting into health and wellness as a career. And the reason for doing that was because we were noticing that our jobs were not fulfilling us in a way that felt very purposeful. Not that those jobs are not purposeful. So I always caveat a lot of these conversations by saying, like, I'm really happy that there are people that love doing tax, that love doing HR consulting, that love doing audit. My dad worked at Deloitte for 35 years and loved what he did. And my little brother works at Deloitte now, and he really likes what he does. And I'm very happy about that. But I think you can tell when you speak with somebody if they're really passionate about what they're doing. And there can be a lot of reasons why someone stays at a job or stays in a career, but I think you should be at least really excited about the difference you're making, even if you don't love every minute of it. And so at the beginning, a lot of Brett and I's conversations were very like high level, really excited about the things that we wanted to do, and now have obviously morphed into the very like logistical, like, how do we execute on things we know we can do. And so at the beginning, a lot of these conversations were figuring out while we had these like big ideas in mind, we're figuring out the first couple steps that we needed to take. So you have to figure out your financial obligations. Like, how are you going to make up for what is a very good salary coming out of school, arguably a good salary coming out of school for working in Big Four, and Brett was working in data analytics at corporate retail at the time. And so that first step is like, how do I fulfill some of these financial obligations so I can actually make this work? Like, is this feasible? And then you have to figure out your schedule and getting the people in your life on board, and who are you going to be supported by? Do you have a business partner? And all of those like very first step logistical conversations while you're really excited about all of the high level stuff. And that transition period for us lasted, for me, it lasted 9 months. And for Bret, it lasted like, what, Bret, like 16 months, 18 months. Bret was getting
Wow.
married, so
Wow.
he quit like 8 months after I did. But I think we started Live Better, technically filed for our LLC in the December, and I quit in August, 2 days before my birthday. So it was a very long time of doing both before it was like, all right, we're going to press go on doing this full time.
So let's talk about press and go. Bret, I'm curious from your perspective. Like, Sam and I always look back at the moments in our journey with Elevation Nation. The moment, Jason, we were telling you, where we literally locked ourselves in my parents' beach condo for like a full week to discuss our lives. And then because of that, Elevation Nation came to be. What was the moment where you guys were like, shit, we have something? We've been doing it with our full-time jobs. Let's just go all in. Can you tell like the little story background behind that?
Yeah, I think that, that's a really good question. I think a lot of people have a specific moment. And Jason and I always joke about when we wanted to punt our Lenovo laptops. That was probably the moment. My moment was interesting. Like I knew we had what we were doing probably, and this is something that I think is an interesting conversation too, probably like a little bit before Jason quit. I knew financially we were okay. I knew confidence-wise we were okay. And I knew there was a long-term runway to increase both our reach and the depth in which we can impact people, as well as to be financially sound enough to live your life. And it took me a little bit longer than it did Jason for the reasons of I had just bought a condo, I was getting married, all those things. And I look back on it and I didn't rush it, and I'm glad I didn't. And so a lot of people are like, when do you pull the chute? Like, should I just do it with a concept? And I don't want to give somebody advice either way, because either way could work. If I would have quit 6 months earlier, a year earlier, we'd still be here doing this. If I would have quit a year later, I think we'd still be doing this too. I think a couple of things for people to figure out. I think people are scared to talk financials. If you can't make money doing what you're doing, you're not going to make it. Now, if you need to raise capital or do something different to get there, that's completely fine. But if you can't show that you're going to actually earn a living, it's all fun and games, and it's sick to have a side hustle and do fun things. But if you really want to take it to the next level, like, can you make as much money? Jason and I made as much money. We were training personal clients as we were making. I was at Walgreens, he was at PwC. So when that moment hit, I go, well, I know my financial upside staying here is, 10, 15% increase every year, performance bonuses, all those things. So I looked at it, and I remember the moment, kind of two moments. I was sitting on a conference call with my manager's manager. So it was like, she was probably in her 40s. And some guy's telling something on the phone, and she mutes it and starts talking shit about the guy, then unmutes it. And I go, I'm out. Like, this is what you're doing at 40? Like, that's what we're at. That's where we're at. And then I remember, this isn't your question, but I remember the day I quit, and I go to my manager and I go, yeah, I'm putting in my 2 weeks. He goes, oh, where are you going? And I was like, oh, well, I started this company, so I'm going to do that full time. And his jaw drops, and he literally goes, wow, I'm jealous. And, those were the moments where I was like, I don't care about what I have to do to make this work. I'm going 100% in on this. And so I think, get your financials right. Make sure you can see how you make money now, how you're going to make money in the future. Is this something that you have purpose in? Are you good at it? Like, if you can't make money doing it, you might not be good at it, and that's okay. We mentor a lot of people that want to get into personal training because it's like a fun job. Like, today I saw 8 clients and I made all of their days, and they, look up to me for advice, and I go to their kids' birthday parties and they get fit and strong and they do cool shit because they're in better shape. I get that. But I also woke up today at 4 a.m. So are you willing to do that? I wake up at 4 a.m. 5 days a week so I can get on a train to get to the city to train client at 6:15 in the morning. I do that right now. So are you willing to do that? And I am, because I love it and it's part of my lifestyle. I go to bed at 9 p.m. But if you're not willing to do those things, or you think it's fun and it's cool that someone's going to pay you money to work out, that's great. But like, you have to actually like doing what you're doing. And I think until you get that exchange of money and time and understanding, it's a fun thing to do. But if you want to take it full time, you got to realize it's going to be your job as well. And that's a whole different beast than it being fun and exciting.
I think, both those stories and that advice is spot on. And I know I appreciate it as, I'm not going to use the word, a young person with a side hustle. I'm not going to say entrepreneur, Jason, don't worry. But it is, until we start making money, right? It's a side hustle and something that we're passionate about. I guess I'm curious, right? As you guys took this plunge into going full out, you've now been doing it for a few years. It's your passion. It's your life. You're waking up early. You're grinding. Is it as sweet as you thought it would be?
Way better.
Wow. Okay.
I was going to say, like, come on, man.
I was just curious.
We laughed every time we run retreats, and our little internal saying for that is better than we dreamt it, because you think you put a plan together, and when I'll give retreats as an example. The first time we ran a retreat, we aggregated all of the things that we do for private clients: training, nutrition, sleep management, stress management, things like meditation and breath work. We teach workshops, we give talks, we give one-on-one coaching sessions. We have all of our meals together in a group, and retreats are our flagship product and service. I think it's the best, coolest, most impactful thing that we do. The first time we ran a retreat, when Brett and I sat down and did the initial programming for it, we said, wow, people are going to love this meditation. People are going to love this yoga class. People are going to love this training. Like, they're going to get so fit. They're going to feel good mentally. The greatest part about the retreats have nothing to do at all with those individual classes. They are the moments in between where we see retreat participants hugging, laughing with each other, sharing stories, leaning on each other. It's the time that me, Brett, and Ryland, who's our third retreat co-leader, get to step back during dinner and just watch a table full of people that are in this one place in the world, all so happy, talking to each other. And that's something that we facilitated. We're not doing anything at the time. We're just standing there watching. But those interactions, those relationships, and all of the amazing back end things that come out of that wouldn't have happened had we not put the trip together. And it never has. There's certainly a facilitation of like the way we put things together and what we're saying and then the vibe we create. Like, that's why the business works. But the actual like moments of appreciation that we have, like the things that I would say, oh, I feel like this is successful because, are way better than we ever could have thought when we put that together. And I don't want to sugarcoat it, there are certainly moments that are extremely difficult for stuff and like stressful. And when you're out on your own, you only eat what you kill. There's nobody setting your prices for you. There's nobody handing you a paycheck. It doesn't come every 2 weeks. It comes when it comes because you made it that way or didn't. And that is not a stress that I think everybody wants or can handle. But if it is, it's way better than you could have ever imagined, because you get to do what you want when you want. I'm living in Australia for 6 months, and it's definitely not the easiest thing for what we're trying to do at home. But we're still doing it. And there's no way, unless I would have had to, I could have done that at PwC, certainly. But it would have been much harder and much more formal. Like I picked up in 3 weeks. Thankfully have a lot of clients that are really flexible, and we've found ways around that. And Brett and I have been doing a great job of being flexible and building things while we're here. I flew back to the States for a month and had an insane trip where we ran 2 retreats, and then we went skiing after and worked while we were sitting on a chairlift. Like, just you don't write those things down on day one. And I think that if you really are putting like your life behind something and you're passionate about it, it will be way better than you ever could have imagined. I wrote I got to find it in here, but I just saw an amazing quote. One of my favorite businesses out of LA is doing they're a breathwork and meditation clinic called Open. They just posted a quote from a guy. They said, live like a river flows, carried by the surprise of its own unfolding, by John O'Donohue. Is the one I was like, oh, that is insane, because you being carried by the surprise of its own unfolding, it's like that's not something that you could have predicted at the beginning. You're just so delighted and like grateful and excited and motivated by the way that it unfolds, which will be better than you could have written that down on paper. Assuming, I think, that you're really like putting your life's work behind what you're doing. Sorry, it was a long-winded answer to your question.
I loved it. This is great. I think as a young adult, something that I struggle with, or Sam, we've had many conversations about this, is that, we grind and grind. Let's say it's Elevation Nation. We do 2 podcasts a week. We got to speak. We got the opportunity to speak in front of 200 students in a high school in Chicago a couple months back. And that has been what we've been working for the last 2.5 years. Is when we first started Elevation Nation, we're like, we want to speak publicly beyond the podcast. And we were like, wow, we're going to get to this moment and we're going to feel like we're at the top of the world, right? And we're going to feel that feeling that we just won the Super Bowl or whatever. And we got there and it was amazing. And then we woke up the next day and it was like, oh, okay, what's next? And when I look back at that, I'm like, damn, it was really the journey. Everything in between that led up to the moment, the hard conversations that Sam and I have had to have, the nights where we'd have to stay up and work and do extra things for our current job or Elevation Nation. I'm like, damn, those were fun. Those are great conversations. And it's like that journey that we've been on is what it's all about, and not knowing what's going to come. So I think for me, a challenge is like, I'm like, damn, how do I not think that like everything is those big moments, right? Because you don't have many of them, and it's living in the moment and enjoying that journey, because that's where the real elevation really happens, I think.
Our entire mantra for our business is to have the best day ever every single day. And that's exactly what that is. The day in which you put in the work to get to the stage is still the best day ever. And that is like it's not a sugar-coated bullshit, la la land idea. It's realizing that all we really have is today. And it's a mindset of gratitude, of understanding the little moments of every single day are all we have. And if we appreciate that there's no way that today can't be the best day of your life. And of course, going out and speaking on stage or running a retreat, those days are lit, and you can look back and be like, that is insane that we got to do that. Now, if we only live for those moments and we chase that feeling, then we're not satisfied with what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. And there's something to be said there that's how most people live for the weekend. They do their work, they do their job so that they can get to the weekend to do whatever the weekend is, or to get home from the job and to sit on the couch and watch Netflix and have a beer because you earned it. What a bullshit way to live your life. Now, when you're doing what you guys are doing and you're amplifying to get to those peak moments, you've earned that space. And the day ends and the next day begins. And it's not like we put that behind us and we never think about it. We never talk about those moments. It's, okay, we're back here today, and today we're going to how are we going to make today better than yesterday? It might not be as cool or the shiny object, but it's another day. It's another opportunity to put your foot forward to make a bigger impact. And that's a hard thing to do. And Jason and I have gone through a lot of shit in our personal lives, all of that. And we still throw that at, we were running a retreat 5 years ago and I shattered my collarbone falling off a mountain on a bike. And Jason comes to the hospital and he walks in and first thing I say to him when he walks in, today's the best day ever. And I wasn't bullshitting. I was, it was a laugh, kind of like a little haha, but I was like, the first day after I got my surgery, I went to my physical therapist and I said, I'm going to be your best patient you ever had. I'm going to learn more than anyone's ever learned from you. And you don't just say that, you have to mean that to do that. And that stems from repeating this every single day. Jason's mom got us both a doormat, which we put next to our bed that just says best day ever on it. So you just start to ingrain that into yourself and you're like, yeah, this is pretty sweet. Even on the tough days, it's an opportunity to learn. A hard workout makes you stronger. An easy one doesn't do anything. So it has to be a challenge, and that gets you to those moments of being ready to speak at the school, to run a race, to lead a retreat. And there's nothing better than working towards that.
So Brett, I'm going to challenge you. We're all human. We all go through great, amazing experiences. We wake up every morning never hoping that bad things are going to happen. We hope for the best, and we hope that it is the best day ever. So how do you approach a day, though, where shit comes hard? I mean, yes, breaking your collarbone, you were probably mountain biking. It was a great time. You look back, it's a shitty experience, but it was a memorable thing. But what about the really hard days? The days that feel like they go beyond one day, 2 days, week, months. How do you approach that?
You take it in a few ways. One, you rely on your disciplines to understand that is part of the process. And you have conversations like this around knowing that every day is not going to be perfect. Now, perfect is different than the best. And yeah, there are days that just go by and it's woke up feeling great, had the best workout, had an amazing conversation with this person, got to meet this person, made money doing this. Yeah, those days happen. But those days are few and far between. Now, it's in those hard moments where we can understand that. On the other side of it too, we build a community around us that supports us. And that's an active thing. That's not a passive community because you walk to the local coffee shop every day and there's just people there that are, singing the same tune. You can build people in your life on purpose, and you can get rid of people in your life on purpose that can fuel you. On our last or 2 retreats ago, we had a guy named Bo that runs a really great gym in Denver, V23. And I'm going to paraphrase his quote, but essentially he was talking about discipline. And he said, you essentially have an exact relation to the amount of discipline you need versus the community in which you've built around you. So if your community is strong, you actually need less discipline because they're going to push you in the right direction. If your community sucks and they're all, hey, let's go drink, let's go party, let's talk about shit that doesn't matter, then you're like, all right, well, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna fight this uphill battle, and we can create those people around us. And then kind of the third thing to that is practicing gratitude, practicing mindfulness, practicing breath work and meditation. Those aren't woo-woo things. Those are real things, so that stimulus comes into my life, whatever it is. Somebody passes away. Let's talk about a real example. Somebody you love passes away. That sucks. Now, I take a breath, I do my work, I go inside, and I realize that I can feel that feeling of discomfort, of sadness. Those are fine things. This isn't blind optimism. And I can feel that for periods of time. It's not like, oh, somebody I love died and now already I'm like shining, smiling. No, I'm going through that moment. And in that moment, I might flutter on the best day ever philosophy, but I can then go back to that moment later and realize that I used myself to be the person there to help somebody else that was going through it a little harder, or to understand that all moments in life they just are. There's nothing more than that. It just is. And once you come to the understanding of that, and that takes a lot of work. And to talk about our business model, I truly think that when you are strong physically, like physically fit, you have way more resiliency mentally because you endure hard shit on purpose. Like, my workouts this week are hard, and going through those has made me more resilient when other things happen that I can't control. So when we realize that we don't have control over those things and they just are, and we're optimistic, then you can get through all of those times and realize that I'm going to do my best to be the best version of myself and give more back to other people, because I don't let things hold me back. I work through them, and I don't overlook things either. They're real, but I'm willing to do the work to put my next foot forward to be the best version of myself.
I know Sam's good job. I was just gonna say that was a fucking awesome way to put it. It really was. Like, I was like so into that. Like, awesome. That was incredible.
I think,
people. Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Sam. No, I was just gonna say, like, on the back end of that, I think people. I started signing off all my emails before I quit at PwC with "Have the best day ever," and people thought I was being sarcastic, and I'm like,
that's like such a corporate thing, right? Like,
no. I'm like being genuine about it. I'm like, can you actually not could you not imagine a world in which someone was actually telling you to, like, have a nice day? I'm like, do we need to just, like, agree that everyone's, like, not stoked? Like, why can't this be a thing? And over time, some people are like, like, you guys are fucking full of shit. Like, it's best ever. Like, what do you mean? Like, and it's the natural press we get. Like, well, what happens when bad things happen? It's like, the point of, and not calling you out for that, it's just, the point of this saying is not, like Brett said, it's not blind optimism. It is to just help you understand that it's just your choice. It's just a reaction. So you can either sit there and bitch and whine, and one of my friends is always like, I have a 5-minute timer. He's like, I let myself just whine for 5 minutes. He's like, oh, all right, done, keep going. And the best day ever as a mindset is literally just that. It's just your decision. And all the things Brett was talking about, the environment, the people, the discipline, the motivations, the habits, those pick you up after you decide. And that decision is also, I think, is a mental habit. But those things are what help you get moving after you decide, like, okay, this sucks, but that's the mindset. It is what it is, and it's my choice to make it what I want. And I'm going to choose to make the next decision I make better, or the next action I make more positive, or the next step I take to move me in a direction I want to travel. And that's my choice. And that's all we've ever preached from day one. We're not prescriptive about the type of workouts or the type of yoga or what you should do with your life. It's just, are you putting one foot in front of the other in a direction that you want to go? And then we're helping remind you in a million different ways that it's just your choice. And that's the way we've created a framework around that, is today's the best ever because you make it that way.
I mean, I absolutely love what you guys are saying, right? And the fact that everything is, our mindset is in our control, right? We're not going to be able to totally impact everything that happens to us, but we can always control our mindset, is something that, of course, people hear about, right? But they don't know how to put it into action. And so I love how you both broke it down, one foot in front of the other, one step at a time, whether it starts with physical fitness or maybe you can't even start with that, and you just are like, I'm going to do a cold plunge or a cold shower and shock myself. Whatever you find is your shtick to take a first step, I think is so spot on and ideal. And I'd love to share, we talked a little bit about your guys' framework, right? Best day ever. I'd love to share kind of what Parker and I have at Elevation Nation with our framework. So before you even get started with knowing that your mindset can control your emotions and your outlook on life, a lot of young people, I think, are missing that ability to look inwards, right? And so meditation is a fantastic tool to do that. But what Parker and I did when, we're serious about the fact that we locked ourselves in Parker's family's beach condo in Ocean City, Maryland in the winter, it was disgusting. Like, it was not like, we literally didn't leave.
Dude,
and
my mom's listening to this podcast.
Yeah, sorry.
The condo is not disgusting. Like, it was cold
No,
out.
Condo's beautiful. We made it disgusting.
Yeah,
I'm
just
sorry,
saying.
Paige.
Yeah.
No, thank you for
She would be
clarifying.
like really pissed at you.
Yeah, she would. You're right. I'm sorry. No, beautiful home. Thank you for letting us use it. But we just took sticky notes on his glass sliding doors, and we were just like, what did they teach us in school? We started with that. We learned all these things. What did our religion, our family, our values, our community teach us, right? We mapped all this stuff out, and we were like, what is missing for young adults? And we boiled it down to this concept that, it's a phrase that's used a lot now. We call it mental fortitude. And we've broken mental fortitude for young people down into 3 parts, 3 ways that you can start to develop mental fortitude for yourself. It starts with myself, or self-awareness, right? Knowing who you are at your core. I think you hear a lot of young people are hearing a lot of these things and saying, well, that can't be me. I can't be the guy that's waking up at 4 a.m. I can't jump in the cold shower. I don't have the discipline to work out. And maybe right now you don't. But as soon as you look inside of yourself and learn and accept that and figure out where you are at and what makes you tick, what you're good at and maybe what you're not good at, what you care about, you need to take that first step to be introspective. And I think that's something that isn't taught in schools as well as it probably should be. I think a lot of times we just mimic society. I'm reading a book all about how humans are just born to mimic other humans. It's fascinating. And so that's the first step, self-awareness, knowing who you are. Your next step is very similar to kind of what you guys started on your journey, is your vision, knowing what you want out of life. Once you figure out who you are, what do you want your life to look like? I think, Jason, you said it, we were able to create our dream life. You need to figure out what that looks like. And that evolves all the time. My dream life 3 years ago when I first, was getting into the corporate world is very different than my dream life now. And so vision is important to reflect on periodically. And then our last piece of mental fortitude is, similar to, I think, a lot of what you guys preach, is accountability, right? Are you going to wake up and make those routines, make those healthy habits, that consistency in your life? Are you going to try to get out of that negative self-talk and be optimistic and positive? Are you going to have the best day ever? And so that's kind of one of our shticks, our framework, our thing that we love to preach is mental fortitude. Break it down into 3 pieces: who you are, what you want, and how you're going to get there. And I think if we can teach young people how to do that and combine that and parlay that into having the best day ever mindset, I mean, just imagine what all these young people, all these listeners are going to be able to do.
I just want to add to Sam's point on mental fortitude. Like, it's one thing to talk about it, but when we live it and do it, like Sam and I put this framework together, we've been living it for 3 years now. Maybe we've been living it before, but we never actually put into practice. Using the concept, for example, I ran a marathon. My knees were broken, like, after college. And I was like, all right, what do I want to do? Honestly, COVID screwed me up. I gained like 25 pounds. I was like, not getting my ick, doing athletic things. I'm like, I'm going to run 1 mile. All right. My goal, my vision was one step forward. It was never run a marathon. And it got to the point I was like, you know what? Boom. June came along that year, whatever. I'm like, I'm going to try. And you got to hold yourself damn accountable if you want to run a marathon, right? You got to train. And so it's like really cool. You guys have your best day ever mindset, like how we've been able to put mental fortitude into practice, see it work, and then share it and hear other people doing it too. So, I mean, I'm curious, what do you guys think about mental fortitude?
It's, to your point about the marathon, is a great anecdote. It's sharpened by doing things. It could be starting a business. It could be running a marathon. It could be starting training. It could be starting to have more difficult conversations. It could be as simple as just asking for more things you want in your life. It could be defining better boundaries between work and your personal life. It could be defining better boundaries in the relationships you have. Really anything that puts you in a slightly uncomfortable situation that causes you to grow into a better version, physically or mentally, of yourself. That's how mental fortitude grows. You can meditate on it as a reflection practice, and I think it can change certainly part of your physiology on how you sort of interpret and deal with stress. But in terms of like actually showing yourself that you're capable of more, which I would define as sort of that like result of having more mental fortitude, I think that's sharpened through a lot of your actions. And it's not something you can be like, well, I'm mentally stronger than I was yesterday. You have to go out and do things and then sort of realize that it happens. You can't just like think it, you have to do it. And Bret and I have always held the idea in our heads that we should also be doing at the same time that we're talking about it.
Yeah,
so
totally.
We participate in all the same races and are still training ourselves really hard alongside what we're asking clients to do and what we're asking the people that come on retreats to do. Like, we are an active participant in this, and then really just like sharing the things that work for us and bringing people together around those learnings. Like, that's our business. We put ourselves in the mud, talk to people about that experience, aid people through their own journey without doing it for them. They have to do the work, and then bring people together in a community around that. And you realize that all of those things, I think, contribute to more mental fortitude. Like putting yourself in a slightly uncomfortable position, surrounding yourself with other people that are pushing you to be a better version of you, that will support you, and then being in a community of people who are doing that over and over and over. That's part of what Bret was talking about the direct correlation with how much discipline you need is sort of an aggregate of the people around you also, that I think all sort of contribute to this idea of mental fortitude. Is really the doing, not necessarily just the talking or reflecting on it.
Sam and I always say, elevating doesn't happen in the comfort zone. You got to go and push outside the comfort zone, and mental fortitude is that thing that helps you do that and continue to do that. Thanks for that, Jason. That was great. All right, let's move along. I know we want to be respectful of time. I know, Jason, you're like ready to live your Thursday. We still got to finish up our Wednesday here. So we have this section called Rapid Fire. I think I'm going to change the section, just call it Random Fire, because it always just turns into random questions that Sam and I have for you guys. But I'll kick it off. Can you tell us a story, very quick story, of someone who left a Live Better retreat and it changed their life for the better?
Do you have another 2 hours?
Hey, man, this is not rapid fire anymore. It's random fire.
Okay. I'm going to call up my boy, Andy Lederman. He's been on a few of our retreats, and he was working a corporate job and had this passion project that he had been starting, which was actually doing very well. And I remember Jason and I were doing a coaching session, and we were up on this kind of elevated platform looking down at him. He's on the phone with his manager, just like kind of talking through stuff. And we're like, this is it. You have to quit your job. He quit his job. His company now is absolutely crushing it. He has like 50 employees, and the dude is on another level. And that's one of a lot of those stories, but that's a big one. And he's our boy, so I can say his name on the podcast.
I can't wait to meet Andy. And just so you guys know,
Oh yeah, we got to put you guys. He's got to be on the show. We would love to. Sure.
And so Parker and I have, like our show notes on the side here. Parker like writes me. He's like, dude, we have to go on a retreat together. Like, we have to go to one of these.
It's happening.
So we're making it happen.
Yeah.
Question.
Sam, the reason why, like, obviously, Brett, like, Sam and I have always talked about getting into the treat world, like, for a while in Elevation Nation, maybe the next thing. But Sam, like, he's like coming back. He's like, dude, I haven't been on a vacation in a while. We haven't done something fun together. I'm like, bro, this is perfect. Like, this would be amazing, man. And to do it with Brent Jason, like, come on, Sam. What better than that?
Chuck my phone in the ocean so my managers can't call me. That's exactly what I'm going to do.
Don't even bring your phone.
Yeah, I love it. All right. Next, this is a little more rapid fire. I'm going to say you guys are both super fit. And part of that, we've talked a lot about working out and mindset. We didn't touch on nutrition, which is okay. But I do want to ask, I'm a big foodie. So what is your go-to cheat food item? Mine comes to mind as a Chicago guy. If you give me a Portillo's Italian beef and French fry, that is like what I will absolutely crush. What about you guys? What do you got? Jason, what is your go-to meal?
Ooh, I'll eat anything. Just all of it. Just all of it. So there's a pizza spot. I live right by this pizza spot in Chicago called Robert's Pizza. And it's fire. I'll eat at least one whole one.
Deep dish, I assume?
It's not. It's more like, Brett, is it like New York style pizza? I don't. Yeah, it comes out as big old wood fire. Oh, it's unreal.
It's so you got
unreal. Shout out Robert's, our
like
little local spot. Robert's my guy.
I love it.
What about Jason? What about Australia? Like, what you've got to come by some random ass food that you're like, this is crazy.
People here, yeah, I would say I don't really have like a huge cheat meal here. There are a lot of really, really fun places to eat. But I can hammer sushi with the best of them. There's our little spot, my little Robert spot down the street in Australia is called Raw Bar. And I'll just get like 6 rolls, just like over 50 little sushi rolls. Get some oysters that are better than any oyster you've ever had. It'll just punt all your Maryland oysters straight out of the ocean.
That's okay. That's
God.
Okay.
I'm ready to book a flight. Brett, what do you got for me, man?
I'm going to go cookies and cream ice cream. I'll eat as much of it. There's definitely better ones than others. Potbelly's cookies and cream milkshake.
Legit.
I'll take 12.
I love it.
Okay. Like cookies and cream is always the best flavor. Yeah, like
it's the best flavor. You can't.
Yeah, it's like there literally is not a better flavor. It's simple, basic, but that's just how it is.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Sam and I read a lot of books. I've bought a lot of books because we've gotten a lot of recommendations from the hundreds of episodes we've done on the podcast. Is there a book that has changed your life? And if so, what is it?
There are multiple, but the first one that we give to everybody on retreats is The Alchemist. It's the best book ever written. If you haven't read that book, read it. And also, if you haven't read that book and you DM me, I will send you a free copy. I'm serious. Enough said. We don't have to go into it further.
I believe that book translated in almost as many languages as the Bible, right? Like, it's up there.
All of them.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, I think they just translated it to whatever language they think they're going to
seriously, right? I love that. Great recommendation. Highly recommend. Brett's serious about that DM, Elevation Nation. I know it.
I will do it. I've done it probably 50 times, honestly.
Jason, anything you got for us in the book?
That's mine. I would say that if you want another book that we've also given out a lot, we love The Power of Moments. It's a really cool book if you run any type of community or you run any type of event-based business. I would also say that it's great if you employ anyone. It would be great if you are a parent. It basically is, the book identifies what makes a moment a moment. And a lot of the anecdotes and storytelling that the authors do are really incredible. And it kind of teaches you not necessarily how to like manufacture better moments to like trick people, but really how you can apply just a little more effort to the things that you do to make people feel really special. And I think it helps with building a business. I think it helps with building a team and culture. It helps with running events. It would help if you're a parent, you want to do something like special for your kid that they'll remember. It's a really, really cool book and extremely well written.
Those two dudes who read it, the brothers, have written a few books that are really, really good. But I actually have never read that one. So, Sam, it's already been bought.
Really good.
It's already on the way.
Yeah.
It always happens.
Absolute must
It's
read.
so good.
Okay.
I just want to give a few more books. 1, 4 Agreements. 2, Atomic Habits. And 3, The War of Art.
Ooh.
On my damn list. I love it.
Yeah, I read the first two. That last one I've seen in the bookstore. Have you read The
It's
Art
not
of
the
War?
Art of
He
War,
wrote
Parker.
it.
It's
He
the War.
I know.
You want to
Yeah.
talk about mental fortitude.
All right.
You
That's
can
your
read
book.
Sun Tzu right after, so then you can have both.
Okay.
Compare them.
I always have to question myself in my head if I say them in the right order.
Both are great recommendations.
I wait for the reaction.
Both are good
Yeah, both
recommendations.
Yeah.
Fellas, this brings us to our final question. So Jason can go tell us how the future is. And so Brett can get to bed so he can rise and shine tomorrow at 4 a.m. and go spend time with his family. We are eternally grateful for the time you've given us. Our last segment here, kind of what we're known for at Elevation Nation, what we went to Prospect High School in Chicago and taught 200 plus students how to make one for their own using mental fortitude. We have something we call your mental motto, which is a phrase that embodies who you are, what you want, how you're going to get there, a phrase that really is you. And so mine is live curiously, don't curiously live. And Parker, you want to share yours?
Mine is proud to be.
And so, fellas, we wanted to know, Jason, you shared a quote, but you can't use that one earlier. What is your respective mental mottos? Jason, we can start with you.
Yeah, ours is have the best day ever.
Fair enough. I had a feeling it would be that.
I was going to say.
But I would say if you want something we haven't talked about a lot, it's just really simple. I have it tattooed on my leg and just keep going. It's just there's not really a time where you should stop. I think there's a lot of very, speaking of like a lot of very like blindly optimistic and really like cliche bumper sticker-esque positivity. But I did see another quote, or someone was talking about something, I can't remember who it was, that if you kind of keep going long enough, it smooths the curve out of like only feeling like you can win in the short term. And really at the end of the day, one thing that you can set yourself apart from someone like how to set yourself apart is that if you keep going and you keep showing up, you'll outlast everybody else. And eventually someone else is going to lose a little bit of motivation, a little bit of discipline, and you win that long race. And that's what it is. I think it's really easy via Instagram and things to see people seemingly get a lot of overnight success, lots of followers, huge paydays on selling really quick businesses, massive valuations coming from some of these products and services that are coming out now. And the advice that should surface to the top is that it's about outlasting everybody else, not necessarily about getting there first, the biggest, the loudest, the flashiest. You'll win if you keep going.
Simon Sinek, Infinite Game. Great book.
Yeah.
Other classic book. I would say mine is if you want to make a change in your life, be brutally honest with yourself. I think a lot of us sugarcoat it. A lot of us read, we're talking about books, a lot of us read the next self-help book just to tell people we read the book. We listen to a podcast, say, oh, did you hear that podcast? We talk about an Instagram post or share it with our friends. But are you actually doing anything? And most people aren't because they're not honest with themselves where they're at. We talked about nutrition. I think when I talk to my nutrition clients, I said, are you being honest with what you're tracking in your app? Well, I didn't put in this and that. So you're not being honest. You can't make a change unless you're honest with yourself. And that's on a physical level. That's on a spiritual level. It's on a metaphysical level. We have to be honest with where we are, because that's where we are. And every time Jason and I train a client, we train them where they're at. We don't have any agenda. We don't put a certain framework on them. It's where are you at now and where do you want to go? And we'll be the catalyst to help you. But you have to be honest with where you are, right? If you're running a marathon and you're like, oh yeah, I run a lot. Well, it's a lot. Is it 3 miles a week? Is it 30? And, I think a lot of us need to look ourselves up and down and really, really evaluate where we are and not sugarcoat it or bullshit it, because we could be our biggest critic, but we're also the ones to sugarcoat it the most.
I love both of those mottos. They tie beautifully into what we do at Elevation Nation and kind of what we're about. And fellas, I think I have to just end it by saying, Elevation Nation, all you listeners out there, have the best damn day ever. Till next week.
Love it.
Peace. Fellas, this was incredible. Just thank you.